Oh, hi there. I'm Bill Stasinski, president and architect with Studio 21 Architects, and welcome to Design Build Decoded, episode 3, the wish list. And don't mind me, I'm finishing up a project here. If you remember from episode 1, I grew up on Lincoln Logs, and so we got a set that I could play with, and this is just very therapeutic. So in our process, we use 2 exercises to help our clients. And the first one is the lifestyle questionnaire. And the lifestyle questionnaire goes through a number of questions, and there's quite a few of them actually, but some of the important ones are, what do you like about your current house? Or what do you not like about your current house? And sometimes that's even more important. There's also other questions such as how you're going to use your house and maybe what hobbies you have that are important. That's a little bit about the lifestyle questionnaire. And then that would lead into our wish list process. The wish list is not just a list of rooms such as number of bedrooms and bathrooms. It goes much deeper than that. Let me give you a few tips of how to create that wish list. So the first tip is dream big, but prioritize. You're not going to be able to get everything that you want in the house unless you've got a boatload of money and you can afford to do what you want to do. But the reality is you're not going to get everything in your list, and so you want to make sure you get the most important stuff included in the house. There's usually more than one person living in the house, and you need to make sure that you're both on board with that. It's a team effort putting this wish list together, but you may want to start separately and each of you having your own input and then kind of pull that all together. And there's going to be some give and take, some negotiation that happens there, but ultimately it's going to be a much better project in the long run. So I bet you're curious as to what's on my wish list. So I do have that here, and I'll kind of go through it with you. And I'm going to start out with a little bit of the questions on our questionnaire portion of the process, and just pick up on a few things that were important. One of the questions was, what's the primary motivation to begin this project? And it goes back to what I talked about before, which is the why. And my wife had mentioned, to get ahead of our future health and mobility issues. And after all, we're not getting any younger. So that's really a huge important motivation for this house. There's another thing on the list here, and we need to address in the new home is what parts of the home simply do not work. And in our current house, the stairway is very tight and steep, and so that's just something that's not quite right. Better storage. We really don't have great storage available in the house. And my biggest pet peeve, if you haven't heard it enough already, is that the garage is just not big enough. I use it for racing and car preparation, and a lot of time Carrie's car is sitting outside, and none of the cars are in the garage. So that's an important aspect of what we need to correct. A couple other things is, what do we see the biggest challenge of this project? And essentially, it's budget. And I think that's common in a lot of people's project, and we'll talk about budget later. And finally, one other thing I can highlight here is the question, how comfortable are you making decisions and selections for this project? And my wife answered, no problem making decisions. The problem will be convincing the architect builder. So I guess she's talking about me here. Okay, so now we're getting into the wish list, and these are the items initially that are the must-haves on our list. We do want to prioritize the space for our hobbies. For me, it's racing, and for my wife, it's all about quilting and sewing. And we also want to create a great place for our grandkids to come over and visit. So those are going to be part of our design process. Other things on the must-have list again, some of it pertains again to the accessibility. So we want a bathroom that's accessible, no steps or minimal steps into the house. I don't know if that's going to be possible or not, but that's something I'd like to do. And same thing with the outside, because I see my mother struggle with steps. And so even one step is difficult as you age. The garage. Have I mentioned the garage before? I can't remember, but that's important to me. So anyhow, it's got to have parking for 3 street vehicles to get into the garage and, you know, be able to sit in the garage and in addition to having the race car space. I'm going to need a hoist to lift the race cars and engines, so that's something I need to work into the ceiling of the garage. And space for the beer refrigerator and freezer and snow blower and lawnmower and all these other things that we need to accommodate. And that's something that, as I go through this list, a lot of people, it's going to be the same thing. You have the same kind of requirements. So, but get it down on paper so you don't forget about it. For my wife's quilting room, with adequate size, natural lighting as much as possible, room for a long arm quilting machine, which is a pretty big piece of equipment. Storage for, my God, hundreds of pieces of fabric. I just, you know, the delivery, Amazon comes every day with more fabric. So that's a lot of the must-haves. Going to give you a quick rundown of some of the things that we'd like to have. One of them is a pivot door. If you're not familiar with a pivot door, it's a bigger, oversized door, and it's instead of hinges on one end, and it pivots open, and it's just a cool thing to have. I mean, it's no one needs it, but it's kind of a cool item. The other thing I noticed in a pivot door is as I open it to greet people and come in, the other side allows a spot for Cody the dog to kind of run out. So there might not be practicality with a pivot door, but it's on the list. Corner windows. I'd love to have kind of a corner arrangement of windows in the house. Superior Walls Foundation System. It is a system that just eliminates a lot of problems later with your typical poured foundation, but we'll get into that. And then on my win the lottery list, elevator to the basement. Again, I don't think that we have the room for it, let alone the budget for it. And then finally, I-joists for the first floor joists. The I-joist systems are an engineered lumber, and you know, I've lived in other homes with the I-joists, and they're just wonderful. But they require a drywall ceiling to fire protect them these days, and so that adds an additional cost. Now, since we're probably going to do a drywall ceiling, then that cost differential may not be so much. So that is one kind of win the lottery item that may bump up into the rest of the house. We'll see. So that kind of gives you an overview of the things that are on my list. Okay, so I think by now you probably get an idea of what the wish list is all about. I've shared a bit about what we have. We have a much more detailed list, but we don't have time to get into all that right now. We want to kind of wrap up this edition of Design, Build, Decoded. But ultimately, I think you got the gist in the wish list. So with that, don't forget to subscribe and like our series here, and stay tuned for the next episode where we actually get involved finally in the design of the house. Done. Oh yeah, that's it. Boom.